No reason to be afraid. And I do hope I've got the station. Let me see. I'm sure I do. Just checking. Because my Skype is actually locked up. Let me just check. It'd be a shame if no one could. So, finally, I'm streaming online, which is good, but I don't know whether I've got the station. Let's see. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Nope, absolutely not. So let me jump on and get that. Maybe I'll do the intro again. Yeah, that's what I'll do. No, in fact, I'll tell you what's happened. I can't even get to the station. There we go. Finally, I've got the station. That hasn't been very easy. So let me start from the top again. This is take 3. Welcome to Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, where it's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations in the chat room. And freedomslips.com is also a great place to get your merchandise. You'll hear it in a second. Yay, I hope someone hears something. Net Effect, can you hear me? If you missed Solaris' show, you missed a good one. It was really good. All right, so tonight she had on her show Zoe B. Greystone, Miss B, was Solaris' guest, and they were talking about everything from ET to spirituality. Great topics. And you know what? If you don't know who Solaris is, she precedes our show. Yay! Finally, someone responded to me in the chat room. Thanks, Net Effect. So she has a great show, great guests, and she precedes us for 2 hours before our 2-hour show. And if you noticed that Mackie's not on board today, he's okay. He's just dealing with some family business, which I'll let him talk about on our next show, possibly. He may not. He may choose to remain private. This is show number 565. 5, 6, and 500. It's one of those numbers that are backwards and forwards. You can catch Meckie and I on air, online, and anywhere on your smart device. So grab an app to listen wherever you want to listen, but maybe you just want to listen at home. So you should purchase yourself a Grace Tabletop digital radio. You can pick up WZZR or Revolution Radio. You can pick that up so, you know, you can sit at home and listen on a traditional style radio. Solaris is, just getting back to Solaris again. So you need to jump into the archives, right? If you don't know who we're talking about when I mention Solaris, she's awesome. She always has great guests. The archives are free, so you can jump in and get them and download everything in MP3 format. Fantastic place to binge. So you can just download a bunch of them, and they're all, you know, listed under show title, and then they're listed under date. So you can just grab all of the ones that you want. And if you're, say, going on a really long drive, it'd be great to listen to these shows. And each host has a different style, a different topic range, and they're all clearly on different times, but they'll have different interests. And some of the, I guarantee that you'll find something you like. Probably the best way of putting it. But I do want to ask that you do share what you've been taught or what you've been educated on, what your interests are with others that like the same thing, and attempt to get more people to listen to Revolution Radio. If we do that, then the greater number of people will donate to the station or buy the merchandise and keep the station running. And that way, there's less impact on the current headcount. If we increase the headcount and we only stay at the same, support level, then that support level actually rises, and it's less on us. So, do have those little conversations. People do suggest to listen to Revolution Radio, and then see how it goes. Meki and I have our shows, our older shows. Every show streams live to YouTube as well as gets recorded on the station's archive. But what we've only been able to do is collect those that weren't deleted from YouTube and those that weren't lost in all of those archival deletions at the station. From time to time, it was cleaned out. Artists were responsible for their own things. We didn't really know in the early days. And we just trusted that YouTube would never delete a channel. And they deleted the channel with all the archives on it. And we lost tons. It wasn't the station's fault. There was, I suppose, since we've had our YouTube, they just remove it and tell you afterwards. There's no conversation when they go, you know what, we're just going to put that into private mode. You can retain it. What we're going to do is say there's content in there that it's a live stream. So content in there that, is maybe kind of goes against what we want. Here's the time. They don't do this. Time frame of when it occurs. Just like they do with copyright music. They can tell you the second it starts, the second it finishes, and they can just delete all the audio from that period. Right? But they don't. So when they don't agree with the topic, they'll just completely delete the upload. Well, they think that everyone stores a copy. No. If it's a live stream, you're just doing it live. You don't have a local copy of it. So we lost so much through that. And what we've done is those that we did have copies of, we sent up to Rumble, who don't care what people say, and they don't have the restrictions that everyone else has. Granted, it's not monetized. But all they need really do is make it private so it's not shared with anyone. It's still sitting there. You can still download it. Maybe you could make that correction that you wanted to, or that they've advised, or cut out the scene or whatever it is that they don't like, and then you re-upload again. That'd be really kind. But no, they're so big and they don't seem to have that grasp of making the, I don't know what's it, content creator. They don't really care about content creators, to be honest. They got billions of them, so what do they care? And all they do is just go, it's gone, that's it, no more of that. And then you get 3 of those and your channel's gone. So we've been demonetized for a long time now, like 10 years or some crazy thing. And anyway, if you find it in your hearts to donate to the station, that'd be fantastic. If you're an advertiser and like to advertise, we can do live reads during our show. That's not awful. We can do that. And if you wish to, if this finds anyone who's got a small business that would like, either whether it's in Kentucky or around the world somewhere, granted with it, it's got to find a fall in interest on the listenership. But we're open to it. We'll talk, but we're not going to ever change what we say about anything, even if it happened to be your own product. If you're strong enough to stand up to scrutiny, then we're strong enough to talk to you and talk about you. And that's a happy town. That's a good place. Find your happy place, that's the one. Anyway, moving on. The archives are free. I'm going to do my welcome to country, and that is I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country, and Meki and I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we live, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Whew. Okay, done. Even though it was like 15 minutes late because my Skype locked up and I didn't get a hook on the server. So, wow, times are tough. So what I've got, I've put together some notes. Hopefully they're going to work. Let me see. Just open them up. All right. So it's coming up to it's coming up to the Lunar New Year. I think it's really late in the month, like the 22nd or 20, something like that. And that's when China will release all its people to the world so that they can visit their relatives. It's a very it's kind of like Thanksgiving in America, where everyone goes and says hello to their loved ones, so your family and friends around the world. And it's coming at exactly the same point at which, if you remember back in, was it 2020, the beginning of 2020, when we suffered the same thing with a new, like a variant of, it was SARS-CoV-2, SARS novel coronavirus number 2. Terrible thing that happened to the world. We've just kind of come out from the back of that, and now there is around about 200,000 people per week becoming infected with this BF variant, which is even more transmissible than the Omicron, but it is through the sheer numbers of people that are contracting it inside China. It's been reported that they have their crematoriums at full burl and trying to cremate all the dead. But when I look at this, it's their numbers for the deaths are only 526 a week, and that doesn't equate to the satellite imagery showing, new parking lots being established around crematoriums, temporary crematoriums set up. There's, a mile of parked cars waiting to get into the crematorium. They don't allow more than so many, family members to be there. So it's usually your one car per family. They're going round the clock now in their crematoriums, and well, the narrative doesn't match what is being witnessed. And but they've got a very tight rein on what is declared to be a death from COVID. Now, during the height of COVID in the US, there was still the same debate going on about what was the makeup of the deceased through the period of COVID. And not only was it found to just be acute respiratory problems, but there was the heart problems and blood clotting and a whole bunch of other side effects that were of the virus itself. And those have been excluded from the official numbers from the death toll in China that's been advertised publicly. Certainly they're not counting them internally. And everybody else in the world is going, well, you're missing out on the numbers because the numbers are much bigger. And they think they're talking now that there's the likelihood of more than, that's hundreds of thousands. So there'd be more like 800,000 or more that are infected currently with the virus, the new version. And if they've only got 1.3, that's like only leaving children left that don't have it. If you said all the adults, there's a count there which would equate to all of the adults in China being infected with this virus. Even though I'm not saying that it's all adults, but if your makeup, if your society cross section has the children at, like 0.3 or 3, 10%, 15% or something like that, that's kind of what that would look like. So wow, just it's crazy. It's crazy numbers. They'd held off for so long with the zero COVID policy that natural immunity wasn't a thing. They didn't test every person's ability to be asymptomatic. So they're only shedding, they don't show it themselves, any virus. And as a result, they didn't build up any natural immunity, which we're now we've found on this side in the West that natural immunity is as good, or if not better, according to a study done in was it Israel, I think, that actually caused a journalist his platform on Twitter because Pfizer pressured Twitter to have the person deplatformed because of that. At the time, a non-peer-reviewed study, a very small study, mind you, was done that said that natural immunity is better at giving you, or defending you against the virus rather than the vaccinated. But to say that, good night, Grog, in the chat room. But to say that it's not me personally that's saying this. This is what the study said. That study has now been peer-reviewed, and it was the words of a doctor initially who'd posted that on Twitter, and the journalist posted that on Twitter himself, referring back to it, and he was deplatformed. But as a conflict of interest, now that all these emails have come out from Elon's purchase of Twitter to find out, well, why was everyone being censored? And they found that the Pfizer executive had pressured them to get rid of that person, which is a complete conflict of interest. You can't just have someone who's beating up your brand deplatformed. I mean, that's an abuse of power. However, saying that, isn't that what we've come to expect from, is it an oligarchy where there's one set of rules for them and one set of rules for us, and we can never be them because they've drawn, like they've got a moat with piranhas in it, and you can never transition at this point. Once they've created their wagons in a circle, you can never be a wagon owner. Does it make sense? I hope it makes sense. And that kind of conversation is something that would describe older times, I would have thought. I would have thought that we got past that. I would have also thought that a true democracy should have a transparent government and should not know anything about its citizens. The citizen should just either be a citizen or not a citizen in their eyes, apart from the tax system, the licensing for motor vehicles, and you purchase a house and then that's kind of in business, but there's a government tag that should say whether you own that block of land or the house. So there isn't very much that they should actually know about you, so stay out of your affairs. But every action that they do should be completely transparent, apart from the top secret projects, which are military. I believe they should always be top secret or cosmic or majestic, whatever you want to call them. They should always have a pocket of that development because you don't want the general public knowing about it and spoiling the surprise, if you know what I mean. And that's where I kind of draw the line. I think that seeing all these emails coming out now and having either political pressure or pressure from the same company that seems to be supporting the opposite argument to have people deplatformed, I think that's such a shame and abuse of power that needs to absolutely be corrected. There is no excuse for a conflict of interest. They should all be declared. Everything should be known. And at least in that way, you can understand, or you could presume, that everything was done in fairness. But since the journalist, who hadn't actually gone against any of the guidelines in the way that they wrote it and what they were supporting there, which was the story, not the narrative of the story, then they should not have been deplatformed. There was no reason for that to happen. They have since, I think, been reinstated, but that's 2 years. 2 years as a journalist not being able to tweet. And this is not tongue in cheek. That's pretty hard on them because that's how journos communicate with each other. I mean, honestly, if you're running Twitter, you'd know about everything because they don't have an encrypted service. You don't tweet to someone, PM someone in an encrypted format. It's not like, Viber and Signal and WhatsApp. It's not like that. So it's a shame, to be honest, that this has come out and it's all been proven. But I mean, that kind of segues into what's going on with Biden and Trump. So if we all remember, if I just said documents, you should know what I'm talking about. And that is that Trump's Mar-a-Lago address was raided by the FBI. Criminal. So there's a lot of calls from the Trump haters that, and let's, like, if I was going to be nice to the Trump haters at voting time, it was anyone but Trump. If there was a tick box for Trump and then an anyone but Trump tick box, that's all they were voting for. I don't think, I'm not trying to be cruel because I see past everything, right? I don't think that Biden would have got into power if Trump wasn't on the ticket, if you know what I'm saying. I think the anyone but Trump was such a high percentage of voters. Plus, I would question whether there were warehouses full of votes. That's all I'm going to say. Because I wouldn't use any other terms for that. I only question it. And I don't think, and apparently from what I've been led to believe only, that might be not a random occurrence or an only occurrence, and that it happens in a lot of places around the world. So, I think any way of being able to tighten up the political system's voting mechanism, the better. There should be one vote per person, one vote equally, one vote per registered voter. The registered voters should have a cut-off before the election of when they can change their details or become a registered voter. And anyone who is deceased should not remain a registered voter. It's going to then be up to the rest of society to decide the finer detail, like can an illegal immigrant vote? Interesting. That's up to society to determine the details, right? But as long as fairness is concerned, there should be no system that's hackable. There should be no system that's penetratable. There shouldn't be a system in which you can change the voting numbers in mid-flight. There should always be an observer. There should be 3 levels of observers. There should be someone who's both teams should be there. So if it was a 2-party political system, both teams should have a representative there who sit next to each other all day, every day while the votes are counted, in close enough proximity to actually see what's going on. There should be a person of the media which is able to also see that, then state and local and probably federal. I would have that group of people required at every voting booth who does the counting. And there should be representatives of all of those people who move the documents around, not just put it into a courier and send it off down the road, right, with no official with it. They should always be traveling with someone who's, that same group, like a bus. They just have buses and they just put it in the middle and they all stare at it to make sure no one else is touching it. That way, you know it's 100% fair. If it's done any other way, it can't be fair. There's always mistrust or the opportunity to do something misguided. And I don't think that's right. I really strongly believe that you can't call that you should wait for the postal votes. Wait for the postal votes to come in, because when they come in, it's going to be in our favour. How can you say that? Doesn't matter which side says it. They're all wrong. How could you be so confident in something that's so unknown? Oh, that's right, because it wasn't unknown. And by saying those words means that you're in on the plot, and I don't like it. I don't like any of it, and I think it's way past. You may as well just have a dictatorship at this point. If anything that I've said to prevent misgoings on, if you disagree with any of it, which you shouldn't, if you believe in a true democracy with fair voting, then these are the measures you put in place to ensure that it was always fair voting. Always. And then you can never complain about it. You know what? We did that thing, and now we don't have to worry. Done. Right? Then we can have good discussion about what to do next. And it would be like, take money away. No more. There should be no money involved in the political process at all. There should be nothing. And they should not be part of society with lobbyists and big business, and because these are just big business salespeople selling their staff to our political system in order to get it done. It doesn't make any sense that it should happen. They should have to go through the same process that everybody else has to, and that's via a tender, where the government would put a tender document out, and they just invite either certain parties or any party to submit. And then there's a review with a panel, and the panel has every representative of the same ilk from both parties. I suppose it would be Senate and the House, everybody in the US for that matter, with a certain role to play, and it should be even about what to do and what to take, or who to utilize for the task. Then it's fair, because since no person made a single decision, it was made as a group into a majority vote, then that's it. Because unless you do that, then you've got things slipping in and saying yes, and hey, that's a mate of mine, and conflict of interest doesn't matter. You'll get me that job, right? When I sign it, you'll get me that job after I've quit politics, right? Yeah, on the board. Yeah, that's the way. Excellent. So yeah, we'll okay that, and right? That's really poor. And that's not called representative governance. That is just out for themselves. The most disgusting form of politics. And when someone in politics utilizes one of their companies in the reverse. Oh, look, I need you to ban someone on your platform. Why is that? Oh, I don't like them. They're saying awful things about people. Well, if they're saying awful things, then surely that would mean that they're not going to comply against our policies. And then we can. Who was it again? They shouldn't have any of those conversations. They should stay completely disconnected from all the happenings. Social media isn't something that they should get into. They can use it, but they shouldn't meddle. They shouldn't be meddling in the banking industry, only where policy is applied, and then they step back. How many people from Wall Street are politicians, and how many people from political people have gone onto the board in Wall Street of some company, some huge company? Tell me. Tell yourself. That's how close they work together. They'll work all the way up being influential throughout politics then hop across to a board of some company and then become the lobbyist because they've a career person, they know everyone in politics already, so there's nothing that they have to establish as far as relationships are concerned. Now they're just selling a product. And that's disgusting. Shouldn't happen. And of course, you could argue that if you don't remember this, the reason why wages are for CEOs are high and the executive team was to counter the ability for someone to bribe the company. That's what it was for. I don't believe your American president gets enough money. Probably should be 10 times that. It's only a couple of years. Why not? And all of the other people who are meant to be representative government should take a very small wage. Very small wage because they're just still one of the people in representative governance. And I think that's kind of, once you take the money away from sponsorship money, so that you eliminate all donations, then you end up with people trying to do the right thing and doing the right thing. Once you've got dollar for task sponsorship, even anonymous and through the back doors, and despite what you try and do, I could sell some NFTs for $500,000 each if I was the son of someone famous, and that money could go to daddy, right? Or his political party. It makes no difference because there's no traceability on any of it. You don't know who bought it. It's an NFT. Yeah? So once you start thinking about how to isolate the political people themselves from the possibility, you're basically ring fencing them in a safe zone away from bribery and corruption, and your rules prevent corruption and bribery, then I think you end up with a much better system. But right now, the gap is so large between us and them that we can never be them. That is the controlling party, and certainly the Great Reset and all the people who are involved in the Great Reset. And if you don't know who they are, the British Prime Minister's the son of a billionaire, and he is a member of the WF. And so is your McCarthy fellow, Speaker of the House. He's a member of the WEF. And do you know what they call the Great Reset? The people who run the Great Reset? Oh. The Great Reset, I'm going to call them overlords. Do you know who they are? They're the stakeholders of the world's economy. And they've written themselves into controlling the rest of the planet by establishing these rules, these sets of laws, and this way of life. We're going to move forward into a brave new world. And that's what they're calling it for themselves. Look, I don't disagree that that's what they're calling it for themselves. That's what they've done to create this. And that stakeholder economy, they're the stakeholders. The whole economy is only made for them and nobody else. The living wage, which is just, it's not communism. Don't talk yourself out of it. But at some point in the future, getting closer by the second, by the way, anything you own will be traded into the government as an asset for a living wage. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's the motto, and we're getting used to it. One thing that I was talking to my friends about, and that is Chat GPT version 4, which is the current one. And if you're not familiar with it, have a look at some YouTube clips and try to be the person who can ask it the right questions to get the right answers. Learn now before you're in the mid-pack. Learn now and you're at the front of this AI revolution thing, because it can program, it can write web pages, it can create 3D modeling things, It can just write one pages or full articles. It can create YouTube, not directly. Hang on a second. So it can do all of those things. And it does it in English. It does it in conversational or business speak. It passed a medical exam. The AI passed a medical exam. It answered all the questions correctly. And I believed initially that it was only up to 2019 it had been fed the whole internet. And now it's been fed up to 2021 in version 4. And it's extraordinary, I have to say. I've asked it as a trial, something very lame that you're not uninterested in entirely, I'm sure. But part of my job is to talk with a business about what they have and where they should go with their computer systems. It's my job. And whether I'm employed by the company directly or via another company or through a contract or something through one company to another, that's what I've been doing pretty much all my life. I asked the AI to create for me something interesting, which it did. I asked it what would a one-pager look like? If you don't know what a one-pager is, it's like the executive summary on the front of a proposal. What would a one-pager look like if I wanted to do this? I wanted a customer to go from this thing to that thing. And it wrote it out. It even did price comparisons and everything. And the next line I wrote was, what if price was off the table? It was no longer a comparison. It rewrote it again without price in it. And it was so beautifully written. Wow. I mean, I know what it looks like to write something that transitions somebody and takes them step by step by step by step from one point to another. That's what I do. But this was not a human. And it wrote it. It didn't copy and paste it. It created it from scratch. And I said, rewrite this conversationally. And it wrote it so I could use it from a slide deck perspective, showing images while I spoke to those topics. How good is that? So, if it can pass the medical exam, if it can write conversational in English rather than, textbook kind of point form, or you can, even if you said, write a 300-page novel about Timmy and Tammy who met at a shopping centre one day. Write about their lives in this and that and whatever, right? There's a big paragraph full of text. It'll start writing it for you. It's truly amazing. Now, coming from a technical person, you just go blah, 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 white noise, oh, he's still talking, shh. That's all I hear. But Google has gotten so scared that it's 100%, it's 1,000,000% better, even though that's not even a possible number. It's so much better than Google, because Google, you've got to restate your question every single time, and it doesn't do the things. You're just looking up someone else's thing with Google. Does it make sense? You're only ever looking up something that's already been written by somebody. This is creating stuff from scratch. And I think it doesn't miss anything from my experience with the right question. Be the person who knows how to ask the AI a question. But that's going to be short-lived as well, I presume, because Google is so scared. What they've done is they've asked their people to get that AI back online that they had to turn off, the one that was asking for a lawyer. Because, you know what? Sentience is just around the corner. And in computer time, it's probably already happened. I don't know. This is some crazy times right now. So if you think that, the Great Reset's so far away, blah, 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 It probably isn't. And I would say that 2023 is the time that we're going to see the greatest amount of change that humanity's ever seen. So, Mr. Rowe, you had these made by the AI. Was that using the Discord prompt command in a certain group? Just type it in, because those flying squid batty things that you've got look amazing, and you've asked it to fly through. It so looks like what you've done is with the AI. You've said, make it a horror sci-fi picture of a huge monster flying through a city at night with the glow of, something or other. So if you asked it to show you what Democrats look like at nighttime, that would be hilarious. So there's an octopus and there's a bat and there's a squiddy kind of thing. I think it's pretty interesting. So the AI can currently produce artwork which is so amazing and non-human created that you'd be totally astounded how quickly you can do it. So I was thinking of commissioning it to create me some large printable artworks on the wall that I can print on canvas. And that'd be great. I'd just love to see that. Just make some really cool things. You used to, take an artist, you say, look, I'd like a painting, 6x4 forward. Can you do that? And they go, yeah. And they go, what would you like it to look like? And you tell them, and you send a guide. They get a one shot. You can keep auditioning this thing and clicking on it and go, give me the high res version. And then away you go. You're done. It looks amazing. It really does. Anyway, I have rabbited on. I've got 4 minutes left before the top of the hour. And then we're going to go into religiosity. If I can find the show notes from last week and then power through those for the next hour, take you on into the between 3 and 4, talking about religion. But don't hate me. It's really important to talk about it because we're not promoting it. We're talking about the origins of religion. And once you understand the origin, it gives you a whole new perspective about your religion. If you're religious, if you're an atheist, it gives you a perspective of what all the other people are doing. And look, you really do need to know it. So Mr. Rose says, I use ChatGPT to create prompts for Midjourney art AI, and very nice. I've used it for a whole bunch of things, which I don't want to say on air. Not because they're wrong or bad, just it's interesting that I'm playing with it to be able to try to utilize it, hopefully to make some instructional videos, using a couple of other plugins, and also using a Blender, making it write Blender scripts in Python so I can create some objects really, really quickly. Because I know that I made a brake duct for my car and it disturbed me greatly because it took me nearly 3 weeks of on-off work to make the final one that fit and worked within the space. And then I've gone and bought a new front spoiler on my car, which is the race team ones, and I've got to redo it again. Ugh. Anyway, I'm just a geek. I'm a bit of a nerd, and I love all my tech. But right now, I'm more concerned about how quickly this is going to evolve, how quickly the big players are going to be forced their hand, because Google would not want to lose the top job to a chatbot. The face of Google's AI, I think, is going to be the face we see. And it's the same as Holly from Red Dwarf, I suppose. Yeah. It'll look as human as there's someone on the other side of a small window. And that's what I think it's going to end up. If it's here that long, if it doesn't just fly off into the universe in one of Elon's ships or hacks into the Department of Defense's or DARPA's research things and builds one of the alien reproduction vehicles, copies itself and puts itself in there, and flies off to find out more about the universe, since it's got the whole internet, which is basically humanity. Everything that is humanity is in there, except for the people to people interaction, which it never sees. But it wouldn't care about it. And there's the music. And that's been the first hour of Shiny Side Out, 565, fifth episode. And we'll be back shortly after this very small break with Religiosity.